Hello and welcome to Old School PONZA ZOO. But before we get into the video, if you do like these, please do like, comment and subscribe. It really helps out the channel and I really appreciate your support, so thank you for that. Zoo gets its name from the zoo-like creatures it uses, such as lions and gorillas. It makes an aggressive beatdown deck using these very good aggressive creatures. And also, being in white, red and green, it gives us access to some of my favourite creatures in all of Magic. These cards can really put the beat down on, and the fact they can't be disenchanted is a real bonus here, because we can really overwhelm our opponent with just a lot of good creatures. But saying that, there are really so many good creatures in these colours. It really does depend on what you like playing, your metagame, really just what you like. There's far too many for me to include them all in this video. So the PONZA element comes in the land destruction. Our game plan is to play some quick aggressive creatures and then disrupt our opponent by destroying their lands and potentially their mana base. And this is where we get into X Point Old School. So X Point is my favourite old school format. You have 10 points worth of cards from this list. Once you've used those points, then you can't play any other cards from this list. It's an awesome format. Obviously, if you're playing regular old school, you'll play all the good cards, but in X points, I choose to spend my points like this. We have the Mox for the acceleration, we have Wheel to replenish our hand, Regrowth to get back some of those good cards, an extra Stone Rain can really go a long way, and I play one copy of Armageddon to just use that extra point. Usually I put this in the sideboard. For removal, these colours have some of the best removal in the game. Personally, because I'm running quite low on slots for this deck, I chose to replace Chain Lightning and Swords to Plowshares with Land Destruction. This is what makes the deck a PONZA deck rather than just a regular Zoo deck. The Land Destruction makes the deck slightly worse against aggressive creature decks, but better in those mid-range and control matchups. So for other removal, we have Chaos Orb, classic old school removal card. It's going to be in basically every deck. And Preacher. I absolutely love Preacher. It's super strong and usually it just dies straight away because they absolutely have to remove it. So that goes excellently well in our deck, full of threats, meaning it's just another threat. And of course, being in white, we have access to Disenchant and Disenchant effects. Those are just some classic old school removal. So for card draw, we have Sylvan Library. This card goes excellently well in aggressive decks like this one, where we don't really care about our life total and we can really use those extra cards to apply more pressure to our opponent. For lands, we have all the Dual Lands and City of Brass because the mana base is quite awkward. We need different colours of mana, but we need them early because all of our creatures are fairly aggressive. And while there are so many options for this deck, there's too many to include, I thought I would just also give the potential of an artifact build with Atog or Mana Vault to ramp out big creatures. In terms of the sideboard, we've got those swords that I didn't play in the main deck, you definitely could. Falling Star and more Preachers for against creature decks, and then Disenchants and Red Elemental Blasts for against control. And I do play that one copy of Armageddon in the sideboard. Again, if you're not playing X points, you'll probably want a few of these. I don't put it in the main deck because I just think we don't really need it in the main, but it's really powerful from the sideboard. When playing this deck, sometimes we want to just put aggressive creatures down early, start beating down, and then hit our opponent with a land destruction spell. Sometimes this can just be absolutely game over. Our aggressive creatures are very strong, so if we can set our opponent back, it can be devastating. At other times, we're going to want to just try and overwhelm our opponent with our big creatures. They are very difficult to deal with, especially if you're not playing Exile or Destroy effects. And when playing against aggressive decks that don't really care about land destruction, I'll tend to side those cards out for the anti-creature cards. So the mana base of this deck is quite weak, and attacking that can really do a lot of damage, especially cards like Blood Moon can just be game over. Otherwise, cards that are just generally good against creatures, such as Control Magic or Nevinyrral's Disc, are generally good against this deck. So we are definitely an aggro deck, but because of our very big creatures and land destruction, it feels like a slightly more mid-rangey aggro deck. Sometimes against very aggressive decks, we will want to try and slow the pace down until we can overwhelm them with our big creatures. Strengths, it's super fun, has amazing creatures and removal and just so many options and great sideboard options. The downsides really are the mana base. Cards like Blood Moon can absolutely wreck us, and some control cards like Abyss can also be difficult to deal with. Here is my actual list that I used to top 8 in the most recent X Points Monthly. It was super fun and felt super powerful. Again, if you want to see the actual list, here's the list. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Please do subscribe. See you next time.